Hey guys. Whoa, one second. Hello? Hold on. I've got audio issues. Test. Why am I hearing feedback? Test. That makes sense. Hello? Okay, there we go. I was getting feedback. How does it hear for you guys right now? Or how? I'm sorry. Welcome to Thursday's class, first of all, everyone. How does the stream sound to you guys right now? I'm not echoing, am I? I don't believe I should be. I think I should. You guys should hear me just fine right now. The problem was I had my speakers connected, and so I was hearing the audio through my speakers. Let me check. Okay. Delete this. No echo. Everything sounds solid. I just have to delete something. Okay, cool. All right. Welcome. So, how's everyone's day off or day in between classes when you have other classes, I guess? Right. That's more what it should be. Just going to turn this down a little bit. Cool. So today we are going to talk about, we're going to be working with, again, like a sphere, a ball, right? But we're going to be focusing on anticipation, mass and weight, and squashing and stretching in a different way inside of After Effects. So I think today I might take a little bit of a different approach, design wise, to this project. That's good, Logan. Yeah, sometimes you got to get things all added up and situated before you feel like you can take a breath and have like not feel so chaotic. One second here. All right. So let me open this up for us. So I just posted this, and this is the project that we're going to be starting to work on today. I might get through all of it. Let's hope I do. If I do get through all of it, we can jump into going over the rest of the typography projects that I have so far. I might just do a couple of these and have you guys do like the squash and stretch on your own time. But they shouldn't take too long, especially now that you guys are more familiar with After Effects and animating inside of After Effects using keyframes, all that kind of stuff. So this week's project is all inside of After Effects, and then we're going to essentially do this, but inside of Cinema 4D as well. And when you open this up, you're obviously going to see that we have the GIF that's on the home page right here as well, so that if you guys need to download it again, you can for any reason. But watching this is going to give you a good idea of what we will be, the things that we'll be doing, especially focusing on this one. The anticipation one's going to be a good one. Squashing and stretching, and we're going to do like a little technique to get like animation smears inside of After Effects today. So we're going to be doing some more fun stuff. And then what I challenge you guys to do is take this information that you learn for this class or for this lesson, and the things that you've learned so far, and let me pull this up. Find some inspiration. I mean, you can look, Vimeo's great, any kind of video. Instagram's huge for inspiration for like motion design and stuff and animation. But let me go to my pin board real quick. I have a pin board that just has some motion design stuff. We're going to work on like adding some more textures and stuff, and just going in on things like on Pinterest and stuff and looking to see, hey, maybe could I recreate something like this. This is obviously very complicated. This would take a lot of work. He's actually a very popular motion designer, DK Motion. I don't know if anyone's heard about him before, but you guys should check him out. He does some really cool stuff on Instagram. But like watching this, like you guys will probably be able to do something like this after we do what we learn in class today. I'm not going to make anything like this tonight, but you guys will take what you learn and you can apply it to something like this, right? Specifically, like here, that's path animations that are happening. There's this animation smear that's occurring on these balls when they're getting shot out, right, at high velocity. We're going to be able to recreate that today as well. So I would just encourage you guys to go kind of online, look for some inspiration, and maybe do something fun outside of the project that we're doing for class, and then sharing it within Discord. So do the project, follow along with what the project is, right? And then try something on your own, maybe design something different, make it look a little bit different. But the biggest thing is to make sure that you're following along with this project first, and you'll be submitting something very similar to this. Today, mine might not be exactly the same, but I'm just going to go ahead and play this right now. Just shut off the music. Can I repeat this video? I don't think I can. So basically we have in the first scene, we have an impact scene, which is going to show anticipation. If you watch it, you're going to notice that. In fact, let me just stop this right now. Can I save this? I can't. But if I keep playing it, right, you're going to see that the ball's going to go back before, so it's going to anticipate the motion and that it's going to slam into another ball. That ball will be a representation. One will be a representation of what a light ball is after getting impacted by a projectile, and then a heavy ball impact as well. And then there is the next one that we're going to be working on will be weight and mass. I know this says bounce. It should say weight and mass because that's what we're looking at here. Specifically how a heavy ball looks bouncing versus a lighter ball. Like what would a lighter ball look like if you dropped a ping pong ball on the ground versus like a bowling ball, right? I know we've talked about this one a little bit more. And then squashing and stretching using not only the transform properties with your scale, but then learning how to do it with path animations as well, which is a way to essentially move around or like distort the shape of your object inside of After Effects. And so I have this book on here that in case you guys wanted to look it up, I know I talked about this before, but this is a great book to go ahead and check out if you guys are curious about any kind of animation books and learning the principles of animation and stuff. These books particularly talk about that, and so I would definitely check that out. Maybe put that on a Christmas list or something for the future. Trenton's in the class. What's up, Trenton? By the way, Evan, hello. Logan, hi. Jose, hello. Eric didn't say hi to you. Hello as well. Cool. So let us, without further ado, get started on this. I'm going to move this over here. And I'm going to create one project folder for this week's project and next week's project. And the reason being is because they're both based on the motion design principles, but one is going to be in 3D and one's going to be in After Effects. So might as well just save the space and only put them in one folder and just save next week's project files inside of this 3D one. So that's cool. Yeah, sweet. Awesome. Happy that you're here live, Trenton. Let's hope that today we get a nice clean stream. Although I think that the little pod thing I bought for the mesh router is working pretty well, which is cool. So let's go ahead. I have After Effects all open. Let's save the file first of all. All right, save as. Let's navigate to class. Drop this into the After Effects folder. I'm going to name this Makara Principles of MD. We'll know it's an After Effects, right? Because it's literally an After Effects file. And then we're going to composite all three of those scenes together in one single video. And you're going to be submitting that video in Canvas, obviously. The MP4, make sure that you guys are submitting the MP4, not work files, because, you know, I'm not going to continue saying that throughout the rest of the semester. And what'll start to happen is I'll start to have to grade them according if you continue to upload work files into there, which I don't want to have to be that guy. Please don't make me be that guy. Yeah, cool. I'm happy to hear that you jumped in on the live session. Yeah, playing catch up. The projects in here aren't, you know, they take a little bit of time. So, all right. The first thing that we need to do is let's create a folder up here, call it comps, and create a new composition in here. Well, main, right? I'll put main render, so I know which one's going where. 1920, 1080, 24 frames a second. Perfect. 10 seconds. I'll bump this up to 30 and we will trim it as needed. And then the one thing that I want to have consistent throughout this is going to be a background. And so let's create Let's create a new solid layer. I was trying to think if I wanted to do this differently. Let me find a color palette online. And then I'm going to shut off my thing in a bit. Ooh, that's kind of interesting. Change. Maybe. Let's put this one in. Let's see how this looks. Interesting looking green. And then I'm going to, let's see if we can add a layer style onto this. I don't think you can onto solids. Yeah, you can. There we go. Let's go to, we're going to right click on the background solid and then go to layer styles, and let's put in here, oh no, do I want to do gradient overlay? That will work just fine for now. Create, I'm sorry, layer styles, gradient overlay. And then that's going to completely change what I wanted to. But so when you go to add a layer style versus an effect onto a layer, you're going to get options down here in the bottom versus in your effects controls box over here on, you know, wherever this panel is for you. And so you just have to, all you have to do is unfurl this. It'll add it under your transform properties. And then you can change like your blending options. You can go to advanced blending. This one's kind of a different approach. I'm trying to begin to use layer styles a little bit more in my work from day to day. Usually I'm used to adding like a gradient ramp effect onto a layer, but I think that this will, you know, getting a little bit of practice in this way. There's multiple ways to accomplish the same thing inside of After Effects. So just giving you guys like an additional option here is pretty neat. And then I'm going to go to edit the gradient just down here. Yep. And then we're going to actually put that number in this one. Let's find that. Actually, let's do it here. It's called Cambridge Blue, which it doesn't really look blue, but there we go. Okay. Oh, edit that because I want to do this one. I'm going to select that, but let's go dark. And just adjust that a little bit more this way. And then we're going to swap. Which there's also a button down here that allows you to switch. You just have to hit reverse and you can change the gradient as you want here. And then let me go ahead and there's actually gradient smoothness. You can adjust that, blend mode. No, I don't think the blend mode's going to matter right now because there's nothing under this. So, okay, cool. Let me furl that up for now. We can always change this later if we want to. All right. And let's create a title for this video here. The first thing that I want to do is turn this title action safe on, right? So that I'm aware of where I'm placing my text in here. I also want to add some rulers to my scene here, which allows me to kind of line things up to it and snap to the guides that I create. Now, when you make rulers inside of After Effects, you can just, they won't render out in your final composition, right? It's just kind of a guide that's there for you. If you hit Control R, when you're selected inside of your composition, you will get the ruler bars that come up here and here. And all you have to do is click and drag to bring a ruler out from the top to the bottom. And then when you want to get rid of that ruler, you can just click on it, and I think you can't hit delete on these, but you can just click and drag them away back to the toolbar and they disappear for you, right? So but this is going to help us to line that text up, because if you noticed in the assignment, if I pull this over here again, right at the very beginning, we have a title here and everything's aligned, right? So the words might, it's all the same font, which we're all going to keep, but the words, you might have to adjust the scaling of the font size, right, in order to achieve this. And so it's just going to be a little playing around to get that right. I'm just going to hit my text tool up here, hit T on my keyboard. That should usually bring up the text tool, but, and then I'm going to type in motion, all caps. And that's my first word. I'm going to, let's see, what do I want to do here? I'm going to Control double click the pan behind tool to center the anchor point. And then I'm going to align my text to the composition here. And I'm going to hit P and duplicate this and change this one to, actually, let's, before we start duplicating and doing that, let's set our font and all that kind of stuff first. I'm going to drag this properties panel over here so that I have option to have my project panel and then my effects controls panel here, and then just have this open the entire time because I might be using this throughout. I like this Poppins bold font. In fact, I'm going to increase the size probably to 225. Let's keep that a nice even one. I'm gonna again grab my, if you're in your tool, if you're in your text tool and you go to hit V to grab your selection tool, it won't actually do that if you have your text selected, right? So you have to click off of that and then, or just manually click your selection tool there. But then again, Control double hit clicking the pan behind tool will center that anchor point for you. And then I'm going to center the text, and let's change the color of this text to this other color palette that I have. This is an interesting palette. I haven't seen or used anything like this before, so we will see how it goes. And this one's called Sage, C5C392. There we go. I'm just pulling this off of Coolers over here off to the side. And now that I have the font chosen and my first word set, I'm going to duplicate this word motion, and I'm going to grab my selection tool again, and I'm going to change this one. I'm going to just double click the layer down here. Let's change the color of these right here so you can see which one's which. But if you just double click the layer there, it'll select your text and you can type in whatever you want to. Again, I want to make sure that my caps lock is on because I am typing them all the same. Motion design principles PL. Yes. All right. Now the second thing I want to do, let me change the color of this one. Change that to red. And I'm going to, again, Control double click the pan behind tool, grab the layer design, Control double click that to center them, because when I started changing the text on there, it also changes where the anchor point ends up. And then I'm just going to make sure that I select all of them, and we are going to center them to the composition. Or I'm sorry. When you select multiple layers of objects at once and then you go to align them, you have to make sure that you either want to align them to the selection, which it will align them to each other, or if you want them all to align to the composition, you just have to change this option right here. And that's what I want. So I'm just going to change that real quick and then center these in the middle of my comp. All right, perfect. Change that back. And then I'm going to take the word motion, and just with my position up here, I'm going to move that upwards, and then principles, I'm going to move down. And right away we notice we are going to have to update the size of the fonts, right? So I'm just kind of visually, I'm leaving the word design dead smack center in the middle of my composition. And I'm just kind of eyeballing the space in between these words here just to make sure that they look visually separated appropriately. And the first word I'm going to start to update is probably the word principles. Let's grab this, double click that. And then instead of scaling that down, I'm actually going to change the text size. So probably to something maybe a little smaller. Let's try just 150. Let's put that in there. And then right away, obviously you're going to be updating the anchor point often. So just knowing that control double click is going to be helpful for you guys. And okay, so we're close here. Let's go ahead and drag one of these out. I'm going to zoom in. It's important when you're working with text or just kind of anything, and to make sure hitting control minus and plus allows you to zoom in and out of your composition, right? But when you're working, you don't want to be zoomed in on your composition. Again, you can tell that right here. And so you want to make sure that you're just looking back and forth so that you're making sure you're not working too close in and you're not moving things in the wrong way, because I've noticed with a lot of the text animations, a lot of the text, especially in the good, better, best, wasn't far enough over. And so in the very beginning frames, you can actually see the words, and you don't want that. But it just takes getting used to working in the program in order to think about that kind of stuff first. So I'm going to line this ruler up with the N at the end of it and the D at the beginning of the word. And then I'm just going to kind of fudge these around a little bit more. Probably 125 will do. Again, control double clicking this. Let's center it to the composition. We can increase this even more. If I just, before I start doing that. And then if you notice, mine is snapping to my ruler, and that is because I have snap to guides selected onto my computer. So if you guys want to have your objects, the outline borders or the bounding boxes of your objects snapping to guides, you just want to make sure that you click this, make sure that that your rulers is on. Again, control R will do that. And guides, again, the title action safe here is going to be helpful. So we're almost there. Let's do 145. It's going to be 146 right there. Looks pretty good. This is pretty dang close. I'm not going to mark you guys if it's just slightly off. I'm not going to go with it to rulers. Go at it with a ruler, right? That's what I meant to say. So then now we have to adjust the word motion here. You know, this is all just kind of mundane feeling stuff, but let's try that 175. Obviously has to be higher. 200. Ooh, nice. Pretty close. 201. There we go. And control double click and center it. Perfect. And then we have them pretty much all lined up with the ruler there. I'm going to select my selection tool and just grab these rulers and drag them off. And then just kind of looking, it looks like I could probably bump up the word principles a little bit so it's a little closer. In fact, let's maybe bring both of these in. So we have about the same space in between. Let's zoom out to look how this, check and see how this looks. It looks good to me. I'm going to save my work because I have it all kind of ready here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pre-compose my title, but not my background, right? So in fact, if you want to best best practice is to label your layers. So just BG for background, and then I will just lock that there. And then I will Shift Control C to pre-compose, and I'll just put title pre-comp. Right. Hit enter there. Let's go over here. Let's add a new folder and write pre-comps with an underscore so that it just kind of sits up top here. Oh, did not mean to do that. Undo, undo. What did I do? Great, so awesome. Oh wait, no, it just opened my pre-comp up. Cool, everything's back to normal. If you need to redo things, Control-Shift-Z will, I believe, allow you to redo. Ah, it doesn't work in here? Control-Shift-Z, Shift-Control-Z, I guess not. Thought it used to. Some programs it works. Let's name this. There we go. All right. Just save real quick. And we want to animate this title so that, you know, we want them to be animated. When things are on screen, they should be moving at all times, right? There shouldn't be a lull in the animation when nothing's really happening on screen. And so making sure, you know, it's all about feel when you're watching it. If it feels rushed, it probably is rushed. If it feels too slow, it's probably too slow. If it feels like you're just staring at a picture, you're staring at a picture, and you need to add some, excuse me, motion to it. So let's just hop into this pre-comp here. And I'm going to shut off my transparency layer so I can see my words, but then there still will not be a background on here. I'll still have this background that I want to have over here. And I am going to animate the position of these, just simple animation. So this composition is 30 seconds long. Let's shorten it to maybe 5 seconds because it doesn't have to be 30 seconds long. 5-second title will be on there long enough. So on the, we're going to work backwards, which means because our title is centered and perfectly aligned right now, we want to keyframe this position later on in our timeline and then move back in time and change the properties, because that way we have it exactly where we want it to be and we don't have to realign everything and just basically redo all the work that we just did, which is a pain, right? You learn a lot having to redo things over and over again. So let me shut my camera off so you guys can see the timeline. And let's move forward with this. Okay, so I move my playhead to 1 second here. I put on all of my positions. I'm probably going to animate them. Let's do this from different sides. So let's say that the word principles is going to move last. Design is, so motion's going to come from the, I'm going to move my layers around just so that I am reading motion design principles when I look in my layers. It's just a little easier for me. But again, when layer order, you know, like I'll say, layer order matters. So if things are crossing, if you put one layer on top of another, it will obviously change that layer order in your composition. So just keep that in mind. And then I'm just going to keyframe. Motion's going to come out from the top, which is just going to be Y position. So let's separate the dimensions here. And I'm going to keyframe the Y position of that. Design, I'm going to come in from the side over here. So I'm going to keyframe the X position. And principles, I'm going to come in from the bottom. So we're going to start these all at once. I'm going to move back here, and then I'm going to select all my layers, hit U on my keyboard to just show my keyframes. And with motion, I'm going to move that up. Word designs, I'm going to move that over. Again, I find better success just grabbing the actual values down here and moving things versus like clicking in the screen and dragging them, because you can accidentally click and drag more than you bargained for. So, and then with principles is going to come down from the bottom. So if I play this, it's going to look like that. But obviously we want this to stay on screen for a minute and not just kind of disappear right away. So we want to copy these end keyframes here, because nothing is going to happen in between 1 second and 4 seconds. And so in order to do that, remember, you can't unfortunately select all the keyframes and just copy paste. You have to do it one at a time, which I don't know when they plan to make an update with something that makes more sense, but until then, right? And then we want to animate these off screen. So to animate them off screen, let me start with the word motion. Let's figure out who's going first, and where they're gonna go. So, well, principles, let's move that right back down there. Let's move design opposite way. And let's see what it looks like just like back, bouncing back. Motion design principles. Plenty of time for us to read. And then it disappears. Okay, I can live with that. I can even shorten this probably an extra second. Let's see how that looks. And we'll move from there. So I'm going to select all these keyframes. I'm going to just shuffle them over. Holding down shift allows me to lock into place. And then I want to just shuffle these keyframes. Holding down shift again will lock the keyframes onto the playhead. And then I'm just going to shorten my timeline for right now just to see what the timing's like. Boom. Out there. Boom. Cool. Let me select these center keyframes and hit F9, because we are going to do some easing here, and we are going to do one at a time. So let's start with the word motion, and let's kind of give this an ease. We want it to kind of, we do want it to slow down into there, so we want to make sure that this, we're working in the value graph right now. And I'm going to select this keyframe here, and I'm going to hold down shift, and I'm just going to drag this out this way. And so that's going to allow this to kind of, the highest peak of speed is going to happen right here, and then it's going to slowly ease into place. If I just watch that, that's a nice slow easing. And then I'm going to duplicate that on the other side here. So it's going to kind of take a second to zoom off screen, right? But I'm not actually, I'm not changing the easing of the first and the last keyframe, because again, it's ending up off screen, which because the full rate of speed would be off screen anyways, it's not that big of a deal if my keyframes are linear. Now, remember, if the animation starts on screen and ends on screen, all your keyframes should be eased. If you're not getting the Bezier handles for some reason on this one and this one on your two middle keyframes, keyframe 2 and 3, then definitely go ahead and ease these. It's not going to be a big deal, and you can just select these, and if they do have the Bezier handle because you've eased it, just drag these up until you get like a nice smooth motion like this. And then we're going to emulate that same motion on the word design. And because this is the X value, this is why our curve looks a little bit different, right? So we're going to just grab this, and I'm going to hold down shift and drag it out. Again, highest peak of speed is going to be right about here, and then it's going to slow in. And then here, right, because we're moving, our value is the X value. So we start here, we start at a negative number, right? That's why this keyframe's in the negatives. And then we move into our positive number right here, and then we stay at the same position. And then right here, when we start to move off screen, we move in a positive value. And that's why this curve is going up and not going down. If we were to go back off screen this way, this curve would go down, right? And so we want to just kind of do the same kind of easing here, but it's going to be opposite looking curve, because we want, I'm going to hold down shift, right? We want the highest peak of speed again to be right about here. And so now when I play it, it's like just kind of flipping that curve, right? It's just flipping this from the negatives to the positives. And so you want to get that similar looking curve just on this side here. And then finally, we're going to do it for the word principles. I'm going to select this. We start off at a high positive, right? Because the Y value starts at 0 and moves down this way. So we're at like almost 1300 pixels down here. And so I'm going to select this keyframe, and then I'm going to drag this one out like this, right? Highest rate of speed is going to be right about here. And then here is going to be where it slows down. I even can extend that out a little bit more. And then we're going to emulate the same thing on this side, right? So dragging out this way. So now when I play this, nice. Cool. And don't forget to add your motion blur onto everything. Sweet, sweet. This works. So now when I play, it looks like that. And it's going to look like this coming onto screen. Great. Turn your motion blur on this just in case you're not seeing it. And you will be fine there. The other thing I want to do, oh, I didn't mean to turn that off, is let's kind of add some... We'll add this in a little bit if we have time. Let's move on to our first composition, which we will do anticipation, and which looks like an impact. So again, if I bring up the assignment and we watch this first scene play out, you're going to see a projectile ball cock back and swing into another ball, which allows that ball to move forward. Now, when you're watching this, if you watch these two larger balls at the end, you're going to see one ball is going to appear heavy and the other ball is going to appear light. So it's going to look like the projectiles are the same weight, right? Keeping that idea in mind, they're going to go at the same speed. They're going to move at the same speed to the object that it's going to hit. But those objects, because they're different weights, they're going to react differently. So if you watch these two balls on the side, you're going to see how one's going to move just a little bit and the other one goes flying off screen, right? Cool. I've done this a couple different ways in the past. One has been like a hammer swinging impact where a hammer comes down, it hits a ball. It hits a projectile, that projectile goes, and that hits the other object, like the object of impact. So let's do that. Let's start with that one. I'm going to move into here. I'm going to create a new composition, and I'm going to name this one Impact. Let me anticipation, so I know which principle of animation we're doing. _ impact, right? And we want to make this, let's make this about 10, we'll make this 15 seconds, and then if we need to, we will change the time there. I'm going to shut that off, the transparency in the background. I'm going to close this out, and then I'm just going to drag this anticipation pre-composition onto my scene here. And then I'm going to want it to show up after all of this text is off screen. So once all of this is gone here, right? In fact, I'm going to maybe just extend this out a few frames, trim the comp to the work area, move back over to my main composition, and move this one, holding down Shift, and then it'll snap the end to the playhead there, so that right away it'll start to play this composition once we have something in there. Right now there's nothing in there, but if I were to go in here and just, I don't know, create like a, if I were to create like an object in here and then go in here, it's not going to show up until all of this is off screen, right? So let's go back into here. Let's delete this. Let me create a, let's create a ball. And let's create a ball with like, let's create something a little bit more interesting than just like a flat looking ball here. The flat 2D design is cool, but I think that we can do something that has like some texture in it. Let me move this over here. So it's called noise, usually. Motion design with noise. Let's see if we can. Yeah, perfect. This is great. So this kind of grainy looking texture that you can put on to different objects, right? And so I'm going to show you a way to do this to create it on a ball, which is going to give the ball a little bit of dimension to it. It's going to look more like a sphere. But this is a really cool technique, and learning how to just kind of play around with different styles inside of After Effects, which is what we really want to grow, right? We want to make our styles look cool. So I'm going to relay this ball, and I'm actually going to, let's see here. Let's center for right now. We're going to select the ball. We're going to control double click. We're going to center it. I'm going to change the size. 100, 100. In fact, let's do 50. No, we'll do 200 for the ball that it has to hit. Cool. That works. All right. So the first thing that we want to do is we're going to right click and, oh, well, let me first change my color so it matches my color palette, which this one I'll change to this coral color, F48668. Cool. And I'm going to select my selection tool, and then we're going to, again, right click and go to layer styles. And, oh, we're going to add an inner shadow. So layer styles, inner shadow. Let's zoom in here. And you notice that all of a sudden we have like a shadowed rim right here. We're going to add the rim light. So even though it's a shadow, we're going to adjust this shadow so that it actually looks like a highlight instead. And we're going to do that by, let's change it. Let's go down here to blend options, inner shadow. And let's change the blend mode here to dissolve. All right. And then let's change the color of this to white. So we get kind of like this grainy looking texture there. And we're going to update the opacity on this to 100. We want to see it all the way up. And the next thing that we're going to do is adjust the angle. So if you move this around, you can almost get like this rim lighting effect, which might be really cool to do, to animate this later when the ball gets hit. So let's actually leave that at the 120 and pretend like our light source is coming from this area. And then, oops, let's update that opacity to 100%. Let's change the distance because it's going to increase the amount that we can see, maybe by like 10. Not too far. You know, being able to kind of, you can update the noise amount that you want there. Let's change the size. Let's increase the size a little bit extra. So maybe like 15 here for sure. That looks cool. All right, and then let's add like a shadow onto the ball. So you could do the same thing using the layer styles, right? You could, again, right click, layer style, add inner shadow. Can you have two of them on here? I guess not. So we'll have to do this a different way. Let me go to this inner shadow down here. Let me just change the distance to like 8. Actually, I like the distance. Let me change the amount 10. That looks good. And so instead, what we're going to do is we're essentially going to we're going to create a shape around here, and we're going to cut around the outside of the circle so the shape is just left on the inside. And so I'm going to grab my pen tool here, and I'm going to select off the ball, and I am going to just kind of click and drag, because the shadow, the light source is coming from the top here, the shadow is going to be down here. We'll eventually get like a reflected light. So I'm just going to grab this, holding Alt on my keyboard, can change the shape. You know, it doesn't have to be perfect. Let's change the color of this to, I guess, black right now will be okay. Actually, let's change the color to one of the other ones on that color palette. So DD614A. Cool. And so on this layer, we're going to rename the shadow. And we're actually going to add an effect on this one. Let's move over here. Under effects and presets, let's look for Gaussian blur. You don't have to ever use this one right here. You always use this one, the Gaussian blur under blur and sharpen. I'm going to drag that onto the shadow layer. And then we're going to increase this quite a bit. Let's try 100 right now and then see what it looks like in a second. And then let's add a set matte to this. So the set matte, SETMATTE. What this is going to do is it's going to allow us to cut essentially around, use the circle to cut a shape out here where this layer will only be showing within the actual circle. It's called matting. We do that here as well. You can use track matte, you can use alpha matte. When you are using this set matte over here, though, you have a little bit more control. There's a little bit more options that go with it. So let's set the shadow. The source is going to be to the ball here. Let's increase this color. Let's make it a little bit darker so we can see that shadow. And then let's move this shadow. What's the cool thing, right, is that because this is its own shape, if we move it around here, you can see that it is affected, like it affects, that's what the matting does, right? So that set matte layer that's on the shadow on this one is saying only show this shape when it's inside of this shape, right? So when it's inside of this one, you can show what this layer is. And then we're going to change the layer mode of the shadow to dissolve, right? And that should give us that noisy looking grain here. Let me see. If you want to update, if you change your blur, it will change the amount, like the scattering of the noise there. So let's drop this down to 75. That looks cool because it gives me a little bit more of a deeper, in fact, let's go to 65 and I almost get like a solid color down here. And then you can invert your matte, right? So right now it's only showing on the outside and it won't show on the inside. And you can use a matte for alpha channels, red channels only, green channels, so only those areas with those specific those channels will show, right? Let's see here. So we have that. Let's add that light. I kind of want to change this, the opacity. Let's drop this down to 75 again. I think that looks cool. And then, ooh, you can change the blending options up here too. Interesting. Cool. But that's not what I want. Let's add that like bouncing light. We can do this. So we want to, oh, actually, yeah, we can do that. Pre-compose these layers, and I'm going to type this ball base pre-comp, right? And then I'm going to, let's create a layer style onto this now, because you can't have two layer styles on the one. You have to pre-compose it. You can't have two of the same kind on there. And we're going to select that inner shadow again. So that's the reason I had to pre-compose it. Let's change the blend mode of this back to dissolve. Let's pick the same color as the actual circle is right there. And then we're going to update the angle. So the angle is going to be on the bottom right down here. So it's going to show up like that light is bouncing off the ground and then back onto the actual object. Let's change the distance. Maybe we could update the distance a little bit. I think 5 was fine. And the size, I like the size of that already as well. In fact, I would probably drop this down to like 3. And I think that even looks a little strong. I could drop the opacity of this down to 60%. Maybe drop the size down to 2. Change the angle of it. Right there. That looks good. Okay. Cool. And then let us add like a highlighted object here. So let's create a circle with an ellipse tool. I'm going to select off of that. I'm going to create a new circle holding down Shift. I'm going to Control double click that to center that. I'm going to rename this layer Ball Highlight. We can change the color to, let's change the color to a lighter version of this. And then maybe shift the hue a little bit more to orange. That's cool. Let's move this right there. Let's add another, we're going to add the set matte again, but we need to add a Gaussian blur before. So I'm going to grab this. You could honestly just copy and paste from the other one. I do layer order again matters up here as well. So that's why I have the blur first and then the set matte here. Let's increase the blur a whole bunch. Let's click off of this first. And then increase that blur a bunch so it softens that look. Point or circle. Is that what I want to do? Let's drop the blurriness. Oy vey. Let's think of a different way. Let's change the blend mode of this first. Back to that dissolve. See what that looks like. Quite a bit. Let's drop this down quite a bit too, like maybe even 8 will be okay. So that gives us this highlight here, but it looks like, so now when we move outside the ball, right, we can animate this highlight and it's not going to go outside the ball. That's what that set matte is there for. But this is obviously way too strong. So let's change the opacity in here too. Let's drop this down to maybe like 25 right now. Let's change the blurriness. Normal. We might even be able to add we don't want to add that. We don't want to add a layer style to this. There's usually fractal noise. There's noise. There's other noise in here, but anyways, let's delete this. Let's see if we can try something else. That doesn't look bad. It doesn't look great, though. I might have to figure out a different way to do this one. It's probably because the ball is so small that the blur isn't working. And that is a thing. So let's... It's okay. Let me just remove this from here. Or we can take the dissolve off and put it on... I don't know, overlay. Not overlay. Let's put it back onto, I think screen will make it lighter. There we go. Screen worked. And then we'll just remove, oh, I just closed my effects and presets out. Let's just go to effect controls. There we go. And I will remove this. And let's drop this down back to like 6. Did that work? Oh, cool. Uncheck repeat pixel edges. Uncheck that. And that seems to have worked. Let's see if I still hit dissolve if it shows. Yeah, that worked a lot better. So, and then you can increase that blur a lot more. So let me put this to like 35, which was fine. But I'm still going to, and then increase the opacity here. I'm going to change this though to screen. Or multiply will make it darker. Overlay kind of gives this cool color effect. And then I'm going to drop the opacity to like 60%. Even less than that, 50%. Looks kind of neat. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to link this layer using this pick whip tool to the original ball pre-comp so that this goes everywhere. So if I grab this ball and I decide to move it around, everything should move with it. Oh, shoot. Should move with it. Let me see. I think that's because of the set mat thing. So we can get around this by pre-composing again. Right? Sometimes that's always the answer is pre-composing. So I'm going to put the ball base, put that in there. I'm going to grab this Control Shift C, and then I'm going to type ball pre-comp. Ball main. There we go. So I know which one is which. Cool. Drop this into here. And now if I move this around, it should move everything with it. Sweet. Which does work. And so now we have our ball created, which took a second, but we got it done. How you guys doing in the live stream? Everything's going good? Do you guys have any questions or anything? I'm so thirsty today. let's set up the rest of the scene. So we're going to actually duplicate this. The other thing that I don't like about this is that when you pre-compose things, you get these big bounding boxes because of the size of the composition, right? So these pre-comps, when you pre-comp them, they're going to be the size of whatever comp you're working in, which these are 1920 by 1080. Sweet, running smooth. Love hearing it. And so in order to negate this, right, we have to go in and change this. You can do it manually. Or you can do what I'm going to do now. I'm going to actually turn on my grid. So instead of just the title action safe, I can shut that off in here, and I'm going to turn on my grid option. And all of a sudden it's going to look really crazy with this green grid on here, but it allows you, when you zoom in, you can use this to like snap to the grid and stuff like that. I'm not going to do that. Instead, what I'm going to do is there's this option right here where it's a region of interest is what it's called. And I'm going to click and just kind of drag over the ball. And I'm going to make this about the same width and height, right? Similar. And then what I want to do is I want to come up here to composition, and I'm going to select crop comp to region of interest. And what that does is it just trims your composition size down. When I did that, it updated the highlight. Funny. So we might have to redo the ball highlight. Let's just delete this. Let's see if this will work. Put that back here. Let's add that set mat. Again, over here. This these. Select the base. So the highlight might not work like that. That's okay. Let me shut this off. Woo. I apologize. I'm just going to leave this right here for now. We can always change it later because at this moment I'm not animating anything inside of here. And then I'm just going to go here and shut my grid off. And then when I go into my main comp for this anticipation one, it will be a smaller bounding box, right? Which makes it a little bit easier to look at and work with and all of that kind of stuff. So I'm going to, if we looked at the example, let's see here, the example here, we have the word in here. We have two sets of everything. So let's go ahead and grab our text tool. Let's type impact. Learn to spell. It's the same color and everything, which is perfect. That's what I wanted. Control, double click to center that. I'm going to change the color of my layer so I can see it. And I'm going to actually move this below because I want anything that might cross this to go below it. And then let's align this to the center right now. In fact, I'm going to align it vertically center, but then I'm going to, horizontally center, but then I'm going to move this up so it's out of the way. Impact, because we can have two different scenes that increase this. 250 should be good. Your mouse wheel will also zoom in on your comp if you guys want to, if you were wondering. The biggest thing is I want to make sure that I'm within this title action safe area, right? That my words don't really go outside of this big box right here. This one box, the biggest one that's on there. Make sure nothing really kind of goes or sits in this area right here, because then that's a little too far away. So I like to just, you can nestle it right up here if you want to for the meantime. And then you can always adjust this a little bit later. But let's go ahead and I'll ask you guys, do you guys want to do the hammer swing one, or do you guys want to do the projectile similar to like it was before? While you're answering that, I'm going to move my anchor point of this ball down. Just getting in the habit of having this down. It's not going to really squash or stretch, but it's definitely, I want this down below. It's just a little bit easier that way. I am going to, let's create a new ball. In fact, I'm going to create another folder here called ball comps so that I can have multiple of these balls around, because I can see this become a thing. So there we go. Ball main. So we're going to duplicate this one and rename this up here. We want to rename it if you're going to rename your pre-comp up in this area. And I'm going to say projectile main. And drag this down into here. Projectile. Okay, cool. And let me move this one over. I'm also going to just holding down shift, moving that there. And now this projectile, because we duplicated it and changed the name, this pre-comp is going to be different, but keep in mind that there's this ball base pre-comp here that we'll also have to duplicate. So I'm going to duplicate this one and rename this one projectile base pre-comp. Before I open that, let's go up here, hit enter, and change this name. Cool. And so now we can change like the color of everything. So if I get to the ball, let's change this ball color to white. Maybe like a variation of this one here. Sorry, my siblings are going nuts right now. And let's change the shadow color to something a little bit more like this. We'll change it. Maybe kind of like this off gray. Let's shift this color. Ooh, yeah, let's give it kind of like this magenta hue. It's a cool looking shadow. And even if you want to update the highlight color, just go into the layer styles, inner shadow. You can select this color right here, and we can bring that up more into this magenta zone. Give us that. Oof, not that. It's not that easy to see. Might just have to stay white. That's fine. And then let's just change a little bit on this angle right there, and a little bit of this one. So this one, all I'm going to do is, because it's its own layer, right? It's not a layer style. It's an actual shape layer. I'm just going to hit rotate, and then I can just rotate it right here. A little bit more. There we go. Cool. And so now we have we need to switch. Oh, this is another cool trick. I'm happy we're doing this right now. So I basically, because this is the projectile main comp, right? And right now we have the ball base pre-comp there, and we don't want that one. We want the projectile base. And so if you come down here into your timeline and you select your layer, and then up here in your project panel, select whatever you want to switch it with. So you can do this with images, you can do this with footage, you can do this with other assets, so on and so forth, right? And if you just hold down Alt and you click and drag this from the project panel down to the highlighted layer here, you're going to see this little box next to your mouse that's like a little plus, and you drop it in there and it's just going to essentially replace it, which is really cool because then if you have any animations on this layer, it will replace those animate. It will also like apply those animations to the object. You might have to make some slight adjustments, maybe to sizing and stuff like that, but it is still a really cool feature. So we have the ball highlight. Let me just keep that at white. Kind of going back up to here. And then the shadow, projectile base. Do we have something up there? There's a layer styles on this. That's right. So we just have to go to the inner shadow layer style for this little highlight there, which is actually kind of neat. We could actually just make this one a little bit lighter version of that. Go up here. And then I'm going to just adjust the actual ball color itself to reflect a more magenta hue. Cool, that's perfect. I'm gonna save this. All right, so we have our both of the balls set up. There's the impact, the word impact right there, which is great. Let's scale this. Let's change the color of this layer so we can tell which one's which. Change that one to blue. I'm going to scale this projectile down, probably about half the size. And notice that all of those layer styles go with it, which is really cool. I'm actually going to shut off my titles action safe right now. I'm going to bring down a guideline for me that I can snap these objects to, right? So I'm just going to hold down shift, drag that there. Hold down shift and bring this here. I'm probably going to bring this one in a little bit more. And so this first ball, let's see what this looks like in the main render. Cool. Neat. Color choices, might want to change this to like some kind of green variation of it, which I would do later, right? But in the meantime, right now, this will work. All right, so animation time. Let's go ahead and block out we want to block out the projectile animation first, and then we're going to move to like the main ball, because this one's obviously going to kind of cock back, so it's going to add that anticipation, then it's going to fly forward, it's going to hit this one, and this one's going to go flying off, right? So we can make this one the heavy one or the light one. You can set it up like this one if you want, where they're both on the top, or you can maybe do this a little bit differently, like maybe the way I'm going to do it tonight, but either way, as long as it's showing both types of impact, I think you'll be okay. So the first thing that I want to do is we're just going to be animating the position of this, right? And normally I would probably, let's change the timing. No, the timing's okay on here. Actually, yeah, let's change this to 10 seconds. This probably doesn't need to be 15 seconds. And we're going to actually move forward this way. We're going to animate forward instead of backwards, right? And so I'm going to mark the position. I'm going to keyframe the position of my ball here, making sure that you, again, change the anchor point. And then we'll move ahead about a second here. We're going to block out the timing. And I'm going to take this ball and I'm going to move it backwards. And then I'm going to move ahead in time on my timeline, probably to 4 seconds. And then I'm going to move this ball all the way forward until it's like making contact here with the ball. And so what we have is like the ball's going to move back a little bit and then move all the way forward. And eventually, boom, hit that. Obviously, it's very slow right now, so we're going to have to update the speed of this. So I'm going to take this. There's a couple ways you can do it. You can select all of your keyframes if you click on your transform property there. And if you hold down Alt, you can grab the last keyframe and you can bring these in, and it all, like, based on whatever keyframe you have selected as the first keyframe, will adjust these other keyframes. It adjusts the timing in between it, right? So right now I'm speeding up this animation. Well, the only problem with this is if I zoom into, let's see if it did it. Not on that one. Nope. So when you do this, if you zoom out, let me grab these again. Let me try and do this again. And zoom in and see if I can recreate the issue. Okay, perfect. So if you zoom all the way in when you do that, you notice that this keyframe is kind of it's in between frames right now. So in between limbo, right? When we started the class, I told you guys that there's either, it's like an on or off, right? You're either on one frame or on the other frame. You're not in between frames like this. This is the way that this like kind of breaks the system and allows for keyframes to go in between because it's adjusting the timing in a specific way. But you don't want that. So you'd want to eventually, like you would have to grab each keyframe and just shuffle it over to the one nearest to it, whichever way you want to go. I am just going to, usually I say about 12 frames does the trick. So I'm going to go to 12 frames and then here, maybe the 2-second, and holding down shift, just drag that there and then play this. Okay, even faster. Well, but we can always adjust the timing a little more later. Let's get the, move that there. Boom. Okay. Now let's do the main ball here. Let's say this one is the light ball, right? So we can rename this comp if you wanted to. You could just change the layer name down here, right? Light ball pre-comp. And this doesn't actually change the name of the main composition. So the actual name of this composition is still the, which one is it? Ball main. It's still going to be that. It didn't actually change the name of it there. It just changed the name in our layers so that we can tell the difference. But if I hit Control K, sorry, if I double click into this pre-comp here, it still says the ball main pre-comp. That can get a little bit confusing if you're not sure, but I'm just going to type this here so you guys are aware of which one it is. And then I'm going to hit P on my keyboard. And at the moment of impact, in fact, let me just fudge this over just a little bit right there. And at the moment of impact is when we're going to keyframe this light ball. And then that ball is going to move very fast, right? So we don't want to have a lot of time here. We want this ball to move very quickly. And so we're only going to move a few frames ahead. Let me just zoom in on my timeline here. So maybe only 12 frames ahead. We might even make that faster, and we're going to just shoot this off screen here. All right, and so if you just watch a blocked out version of that, we have a ball cocking back, swinging forward. This is the anticipation section of that, right? Where the ball is going to build up that momentum and move forward. And then it's going to hit this ball, which is going to, again, transfer that momentum to this one going flying around, right? Let's start with the easing of the projectile main. And I'm going to ease all of these keyframes. First of all, let me hit F9 on the keyboard. Well, let me go back here, select all my keyframes again, hit F9 to ease them, and then let's go into here. And we want the ball, right now it's kind of overshooting right here. There's this little tiny section where the ball's like overshooting its main area, which we don't necessarily want. So let me edit value graph. Okay, why can I not see? We're gonna separate the dimensions on this. Just gonna go here and separate dimensions, which is fine. And then I'm going to uncheck the Y position because we're moving only in the X position. And now I think I should have my curves. Perfect. And so this first section here, let's go ahead and straighten this out a little bit so it looks a little nicer. Right there. Cool. And so we want the ball to kind of get that speed to cock back here, and then all of a sudden, it's going to fly forward, right? So this little S curve that we have going on here is showing that it's slowly easing into this position, going back this way, right? So it's going to slowly pick up that speed to get to here. And then once it reaches this keyframe right here, it's going to shoot out and go really fast. And so we want this to be a fairly dramatic looking curve. I'm going to hold this down like this. And there we go. Now it's a little bit, I can grab this last one right here and make this curve even more dramatic like that. So there we go. I might adjust these ones right here so that this one has a little bit more drama to it too. I might be able to like a little bit more of an exaggerated. There we go. In fact, I don't think, because right here it slows down a lot. I think I would honestly kind of, oh, let me not do that. Control Z. If you hold down Control Z, Alt, sorry, and do this. And I'm going to go like this. That was a bounce. We obviously don't want it to bounce off of this area, right? We want it to like that. That was neat. I might even drag this in a little bit so it looks faster. Holding down Shift and just kind of dragging. This is moving my keyframe to shorten that timing there. Also remember then we're going to have to update the, because the projectile's timing changed, so then we're going to have to update when this gets hit, right? In fact, let me hold this down. Let's bring this out a little bit. Hold down Shift. There we go. I like that speed. Okay. I'm going to save that. I'm going to go back to my graph editor here, or my dope sheet. And then I'm going to take these keyframes and shuffle them backwards so that, again, this one, right when it gets hit, is going to react. I'm going to hit F9 on the keyboard, right? Because we are going to, I don't even need to do it on this key unless it requires it when I go to update the graph here. Let's separate the dimensions. Either you can separate them this way, or you can hit separate dimensions down here at the bottom. And then we are again only looking at the X position, so let's do this. You can add a little bit of Y positioning in here if you want to later. Maybe we can do that. Let me hit U, let me grab this. And then obviously, so this is going to impact, when this projectile hits this ball is going to move really fast, right? It is not going to need to really pick up speed here because this projectile is transferring all of that speed into this ball right away, especially if it's light. If it were a heavy ball, it would not necessarily do that, right? It might just roll a little bit versus when it hits it like that and it's going to speed off. So we want this change to happen rather quickly. And so I'm going to grab this first keyframe here of the ball getting hit, and I'm actually going to bring that all the way up. And I might get this opposite. Let me see. No, that's right. There we go. Boom. Hit it real fast. In fact, There we go. Okay. Let's see. I might be able to extend this out just a hair, holding down shift. Because we don't want any overshoot happening here. So I may have to drop my curve down just a little bit. But right, this is gaining speed really fast. This is changing in position really fast because we've got a very steep curve happening here, which means that the rate of change is happening over a very short period of time, right? And so when we play this back, nice. Let's rewatch it. Cool. Extending that time out just a little bit, I think just helped the look of it. I didn't have to add that in there, but I just think that just extending this keyframe out just a hair made it look a little bit of a nicer motion, more of a fluid motion. In fact, let's take this and let's nudge it over just one. Nope, we can't do that because we want the impacts to happen. Like obviously you don't want this over here because then the ball's going to move before the projectile hits it. So it's so fast that you honestly can't notice it here. But if I were to go here, you can see where that issue is. So I'm just going to move that back there. And then, so technically this ball or the projectile after hitting this ball wouldn't necessarily stop, right? This ball, it's not going to lose all of its momentum and energy right away. It's going to still continue to go. If I play this again, watch the ball on I think the bottom. It still has a little bit of energy that's transferred in this backwards motion right there, right? If you notice when the projectile swings and hits the heavy ball, it's going to bounce back a lot further because it hit a heavier force, right? Which is going to cause little change on the heavy ball, but more change on the projectile when it's coming back. Well, we're doing the faster one, right? And so if you notice that on this bottom one, it's going to hit and then it just bounces back and it rolls backwards just a little bit, right? And so we want to emulate that. So after it hits this ball, it's gonna roll back just a little bit and it's gonna be kind of a slow roll. So I'm actually gonna move my playhead probably to the end of this animation, which is like, what is this, 3/4 of a second? I'll move a full second over. And then I am just going to move the ball back just a hair, right? Not too much, just a little bit there. And so this ball is gonna hit this. A little bit of overshooting there. That's because of my curves. And so, yep, exactly what happened. What I thought would happen happened. So we're just going to unease these, right? So I'm just going to hit Alt Control click and it will change these back to regular keyframes. And then let's watch this just kind of blocked out. Okay, cool. Boom, and it's going to go back. And so now I'm going to select all these keyframes. Again, I'm going to hit F9. I'm going to come back into my curve now, and then we can just kind of adjust this again. So we'll start over here at the first one, just kind of bring this one out to make it a little bit more exaggerated. Pull this over just a little bit. This one's going to be the most exaggerated curve right here, right? And then this one right here, we're going to hold down Alt and we're going to, Control, and we're going to break this Bezier handle and bring this down here so that the projectile gains a lot of speed right there, right? And then what's happening, this is what all the work that you've done before pays off, right? Because what's happening is there's a bounce that's occurring after the projectile hits this main ball. It's going to bounce off of that ball, right? So remember what our bounces look like. Upside down W, or like a W or a bird flying. We need to emulate that bounce here with this curve. So we want to bring this up and over like this. Again, we don't want to overshoot this curve past this one. In fact, let me just drag this in a little bit here, holding down Shift. but we just need these two curves at this very moment when the projectile hits the ball to move in opposite directions, right? So if I zoom in here, this the ball's gonna hit right here and then bounce off right away. So now if I play it, boom, we've got that nice transfer of motion happening from the projectile to the actual, let me do that. From the projectile to the actual object, we have this transfer of momentum happening, and then there's this residual movement that happens when after the ball makes impact and contact with the light ball, right? So you could even add a little bit of rotation in here if you wanted to, right? Maybe we can try this. I don't know how well it will work. P. Let's look at this. This one right here. This is the light ball curve. And what if we added a little bit of a bounce into this, right? So not only does the ball move off this way, but maybe the motion path is that it gets like a little hop when that happens because the projectile hits it going so fast. Let's just move back to our dope sheet view. And because his dimensions are separated is why you get two sets of keyframes here. And I'm just going to move over here and then just maybe, in fact, let's go up here and we'll throw down another keyframe. Actually, I will do this right here. And let's go in between these and we'll maybe change this value now. So maybe it goes up just a little bit. The bounce wouldn't happen there. It would happen right away. Probably right around there. Let's go ahead and see. Let's see what this is going to look like, first of all. Boom. Okay. You can sometimes update your motion path. So this, right, this pink curve right here is your motion path, right? So this is showing the ball going up, hitting the ground and moving like forward, right? This is showing the path of that anchor point as it animates across the screen or over time. These little dots on here, again, remember these are keyframes that are happening. These are drawn, basically it's like each drawing of the actual ball that's happening there. So if you can come up here, and sometimes if I grab this and then come up here to grab my convert to vertex tool, and sometimes you can grab these and just adjust these and move these around a little bit. You can usually convert it to, maybe if I hold down Alt, nope. There's usually, I think I have to, oh, let me undo that. Zoom out real quick. What did I do? Oh, that was the word impact. Okay. Let me lock this so I don't start moving this around. But in order to see that curving of that, I think we have to actually change the easing of the keyframes here. So now if I grab this, can I do that? Maybe if I just grab the pen tool. Sometimes control works, sometimes it doesn't. Half the time, no control. Let's go into our graph editor and just click the Y position and zoom over here. Hold down spacebar, gives you this little hand, and then if you click and drag, you can move around your scene. So if you are zoomed in, you can see that. Let me select the position. I think it just has to do with the X position and the Y because they are separated. I'm going to grab this and this one right here. I'm going to move this over a little bit. And then I'm just going to smooth this curve out, and it will smooth that curve out. as well. So there's like an alternate way to do it. Like it would hit almost like that. Like you could see if it bounced and then hit here, it would obviously bounce off again. So you can actually see what your curves are going to look like, which is really cool with your motion paths. Let me just pull this one out just a little bit. Right there. And then let's bring that one in right away. So now if we play it, boom, gets hit right away off there. We can change the position. Let's say, because this is kind of a little bit far off screen. Boom. No, that's not terrible. That's fine. Maybe if I were to change anything, I would have changed where the actual ball in this one are. So I'd not do that. But hold down shift, grab these ones, and move them over. Holding shift. Cool. But then this one will just have to move back a little bit more. So just adjusting positioning here, right? Just making sure I'm grabbing the appropriate keyframes to make the adjustments as well, right? Because any adjustments that I make to the actual ball that gets hit, I have to make to the projectile as well. So just keeping that in mind. Let's move this back a little bit more. So then it goes boom and it hits it, and then we can see that kind of flying off, which is really cool. Let's see, we got 40 minutes left. I'll get through the next one, and then we can see if we'll get through the heavy bounces and stuff. Let's add some blur to this. So you can add motion blur this way, right? By clicking on the motion blur and adding it to the lines, which will blur it out that way. There's also another, there's an effect that you can add. Let me shut this off. Let's see how it looks with this. I haven't used this effect with like grain added onto these, so let's see kind of what this looks like. Effects and presets, I'm going to type in echo. And what that's going to do when I add this to like the projectile here, it's going to create iterations of this object behind it. So if I increase the number of echoes of the effect, let's just do 10. I don't think it will need much more than that. And then we change the timing. And you have to put composite in the back. Negative 0.01. Oh, that's not a point. 0.01. It has to be in motion. And usually there's an echo behind it. Let's see here. Let's reset that value. Composite in the back. Compositing in the back, what that means is that it's just making that the echo is behind. Every iteration is being created behind your actual object, because before it was in the add mode, which is going to turn your object all white. So you just want to make sure that you composite in the back. And then let me see, did I have like a special, let me see here. Yeah, sort of like an after image is what the echo is going to do. I think it has to be a negative 0.001. I might not work with this. Let's see if this works if I just create a different object. It might not work with the object that we had. Let's just do a quick position change on this thing. P over this way. 1 second. Makes this change here. Obviously the anchor point's in the wrong spot, but I just want to see if this is working and just not working on this layer style. Oh, number of echoes. Well, this probably makes sense. Then let me close this out. And increase the number of echoes. So now, still doesn't work on the one. Let's see if it works on this one. There we go. So if you do this layer style option, this echo isn't necessarily going to work on here. You might have to pre-compose everything again. Or possibly, I don't know if you can put it even on here. Let's try and add it onto here. So you can copy and paste. Let's see if that works. Nope. Okay. Yeah, so it doesn't work on this layer style. But if you do a plain ball like this without any kind of noise or anything on it, it will work with this echo effect, which does exactly like you're saying, Logan. It creates like an after image here. And so what you see happening is that the ball will start here, like if I solo this, so all you're seeing is this, right? And I play it, it's creating like this tail, right? Well, what's cool about this, let's see if I can add in, if I add a solid color onto here and I change this color to like black for the stroke. And then it's compositing in the back. Let me turn this off real quick here. So what's happening is the stroke is moving first. We obviously don't need 300 iterations of that. Probably like, let's try 50. 50 is not bad. That creates kind of a interesting blending. Let's not do that. Let's do composite and back. Why is that happening like that? Okay. So the stroke will create an issue for you guys as well. So possibly not having a stroke on here. You might have to work around that by adding like an actual stroke onto the layer. So maybe you could do a layer style. Layer style. Add a stroke. Nope, still does the same thing. So, but you can composite this in different ways. You can change the decay and intensity. So if I do that, let's first of all increase this a bunch so we can see the tail. And then if I start to mess around with if I drop this intensity there, what it's doing is it's kind of, it's like blurring that out a little bit more in between these guys. And then if I bring this all the way back up to 1, but then I drop this, what this does is it gives like a ghosting kind of effect too. So if I type in 0.5, it's going to, or 1, do I go higher? No. You can't go above 1 on these. Let's just do 0.9 to see that. And it's just kind of shortening the distance between those. And it fades them off. Let's see here. You can mess around with these a little bit. Let's reset these. Increase this number to like 50. So that drops that there. Then you drop, let's composite in the back still. There we go. Changing the intensity changes the starting intensity. You want that at 1. But you can drop like the end intensity down here to like 0.75 and it gets kind of like this cool ghosting effect. And then of course, if you add more iterations into there, it's going to tighten up that, the amount that it's creating. So there, it would make the tail a little bit longer at the end. And then it's also going to make the tail take forever to come back to the end. Usually this if you want it to emulate a animation smear, I suggest having this the same color because it actually looks like a smear that's happening right there. it's staying that long because this number is so high. So if I drop that, the number of echoes down, I'm going to play this now. The tail will end. So sometimes you might have to just adjust the amount of echoes. You probably just need, let's see, 30. That's even. You probably just need like 10. There we go. There you go. Cool. So it works with that, and unfortunately doesn't work with this layer style right here. But let's go ahead and we're going to create a new, we could do like this. So we could grab this text, turn our title action safe back on, select, unlock it first, then select it, drop it down here, duplicate it, Control D, type light, L-I-G-H-T, impact, Control double click there, go to align it center horizontally to the comp, drag this up a little bit so that we have like this one telling us which one's first. Boom, like that. And then we could change it's good to be consistent throughout all of your compositions and throughout the entire project, right? So I'm going to go over here and then I'm going to type light impact so I know which one is which. I'm going to hit OK. I'm going to come over here, and instead of having to do a bunch of extra work, I'm just going to duplicate this composition up here. I'm going to hit enter while I'm in my project panel. I'm going to rename this one Heavy Impact. And I'm going to double click this one to open it up. And everything's pretty much set up for us here. I'm going to go select these two. I'm going to hit U on my keyboard, and I'm going to delete all these keyframes because we're going to kind of be starting this from scratch. And then I'm also going to change this to heavy, so don't forget to do that. Hecty. Are you guys into Dune? I haven't read the book, but I love the movie. Even though it's really slow, my wife watches it, and she's like, I've watched it like 2 or 3 times, and I'm like one of those people that can rewatch movies over and over, and every time I watch it, and my wife watches it with me, she's like, I still don't know what's going on. And it like kills me. I laugh every time because like usually she'll be doing homework or something in the background, but I am excited for the new one. It's got a really cool cast in the new one too. So, okay, so this time, let's kind of do something a little bit more fun than them both being on screen. Let's actually switch the position of these two balls right now so that the original one came on screen or went off screen this side. Let's have this ball move on screen, slow down and stop, and then this projectile hit it back this way. So we do what's called a match cut. Match cuts are when you have a similar scene or motion happening from one scene to the other, and you cut on the highest rate of speed, where the objects are moving the fastest, and you match those two speeds up to each other with the compositions. You cut them, and so you cut from one to the other. And it seems like a fluid motion, right? It's more of a complex process for motion design. I think that's something that will come a lot later, but we can just kind of do something a little bit different to make this a little bit more fun. So, and a little bit more different than what we had before. So let's have this ball. It's actually going to, so -200. We're going to start with the actual We're going to change this one to heavy ball. Heavy ball. Okay. And we're going to move this up a little bit. Let's see, what was it before? 878. Okay. Keep that number in mind. I'm going to write that number down. Sometimes I have to do that. Not familiar, but I've heard a lot about it. Yeah, because the new one's coming out soon. So, but I'm going to move this up a little bit because it's like it's going to shoot onto the scene. And I'm going to keyframe both. Let's keyframe the... Actually, let's change this back. Let's do the X position first, and then we'll do the Y position, right? So it's going to move onto the scene, probably go to about a half a second. Move that onto the scene about right here. And so the ball's going to come in this way. I haven't done this before, so we're all doing this together. I'm going to hit keyframe on the Y position, but I'm going to move this over here because I want the Y position to end up here. And let's move this up, right? So the ball's going to come in here. In fact, I kind of want it to hit a little bit closer here because it's going to have a couple bounces, right? So not only it's going to move there, it's going to hit there, it's going to slow down. So I'm going to just kind of block this out. I'm just talking out loud right now. I'm going to move this ahead. It's heavy, right? So it's not going to move far. Maybe it goes up again a little bit. Not as high as before. And we're actually learning about the weight scene here. We're kind of double doing this. We're like doubling down on that section of the... This one says bounce, but it should say weight. I did mention that right here to have it say weight or mass. But like when these ones are bouncing... and you're going to see one's going to look heavy. This one's the light ball, right? And this is the heavier ball. And so this is going to be a similar concept, right? When you bounce a ball, let me see, ball bounce, animation guide, animation reference. Cool. That should be great. Cool. Let me bring this over here. This is the perfect reference. Right here. When the ball bounces and it hits the ground, right, it loses not only speed, right, so it's happening fast. Think of the drawings here. The speed on the drawings don't equate to the speed of keyframes on a timeline. So just think of this as like just speed in general, right? So it starts off kind of fast and then it slows down. And then with each bounce, it doesn't go as high, right? It's almost like cut in half each time because it's losing momentum as it moves forward and as it keeps bouncing. So this is going to be the same concept that you do for the heavy bounce, the vertical one up and down, right? Is that each bounce is going to get kind of shorter and shorter. Well, with the heavier bounce, this is going to happen a lot faster, right? Because a ball is heavy, so it's going to lose that momentum a lot faster than if you were to throw a ping pong ball across the house and watch that thing bounce until the end of time, right? And then we're all like just sitting there, just everyone's like, why would you do that? You know? So with this heavy ball, now that this is considered a heavy ball right now, we want to think about that. And so the bounce is going to be rather short here. That half distance thing is good for a light ball. The heavy ball, I would only come up about maybe a third of the way. I'm moving equally in time right here. I will adjust the timing after I get the motion blocked out, right? So this is a great way to just really work is blocking out your animation, then you fine tune things, right? You fine tune the motion, fine tune the timing. So it's up there. We're going to keyframe. We're going to move over a little bit. Maybe it doesn't move over as far. And it's going to hit the ground again. Moving at that exact spot, 878. Remember that number I wrote down. You want each bounce to occur on the exact same spot because it's like a floor, right? And then finally, we're going to add one more little tiny bounce here where it's just going to kind of go here. It's just going to go up a little bit, tiny little bit. And this comp's going to be a little bit longer. And then finally, all the way to the end, or all the way to the resting point at 878. Very small. So if I were to play this, boom, 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 right? But now we need to keyframe. Let's F9. We're going to do this real quick. And let's jump into the graph editor here. And we're going to pay attention to one of these at a time. In the value graph, let's go to the position here. This is the X position, right? And so we want to create that bounce because the X position is changing each time. So I'm just going to hold down Control, do this. This one, I'm going to leave straight like this. I'm going to hold this down. I'm going to do this. Okay. Bring this one down. Do this. Bring this one down. Grab this one. And just kind of shorten these. Now these look like tiny short little bounces. Let's see with the motion. This is going to be boom, boom, boom. We got to make this bounce. If I do that, what happens? It's going to overshoot, which you don't want to happen. It might have been easier just doing this in the same. Let's redo this a little bit differently. Let's delete this. Let us right click and put the dimensions back. Let me keyframe off screen. Let's get to where we want it to be at the end. Let's change this to 878 because we want this down there. Let's also change this to 878 right down there. All right, so it's going to start up. It's going to go just to here. Maybe that's why I didn't need all of those. I didn't need all those X keyframes because the X is just going to go in this one spot. It's really going to be the Y that's going to make the changes here. Let's move to the beginning here. We're going to lift up the Y axis. We're going to bring this up. And we're going to move forward to about here. And it's going to hit down at the 878. And then we're going to go back up. We might just have to shuffle this down a little bit. Hits right there. Moves back up a little bit. Not a ton. Moves over, moves back down to that 878. Moves over, moves back up. I'm just going to copy this. Well, I don't want to copy that one. What's the height on this one? 855? Okay. So let's do 865. Up. Then it's going to go down to the 878 and finalize right there. So I can delete this. Well, boom, 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 boom. Okay. Now let's update this motion path. Let's save that. All right. Grab all these. I don't think I want to separate the dimensions, but I'm going to hit F9. Let's go back to this. I'm going to, I can't grab them separately. Can I do that? I have to separate all the dimensions. Okay. Let's just look at the Y position right now. We're going to create a bounce. The ball's going to not come up. Wrong way. This way. Control. There we go. Holding down Alt to help these ones. Creating a bounce. So it's going to go bop, bop. Here's the peak of the one bounce, so we're going to round this out. All right, holding down Shift. This is another impact, right, where it hits the ground. So we need to create that, again, this sharp bounce here. Let's zoom into here real quick. This one might need to just holding Alt. Alt and then grabbing and dragging like this. Alt, grabbing and dragging. Alt, grab, drag. Sometimes, because the spacing of this is so tight right here, because the ball is so heavy, that's going to like hit, hit, hit. Here is going to go, this is the top of the bounce. When it's at the top of the bounce, smooth is what you're looking for. When it's hitting the ground, you want this ricochet to happen. So when you guys are doing the heavy ball versus light ball, keep this in mind too. And so then we have another impact on the ground right here. So I'm going to create this bounce, this ricochet off of the ground. Remembering that when, I think that overshoots just a little bit. When you're looking at this one, you want to make sure that this one doesn't overshoot the next keyframe, right? And then this one's just going to be a tiny little bounce. So we have a little bit of a hook happening here. What is this that's going on? Just going slightly over. That one. It's this keyframe. Here's the problem. Oop, I didn't want to grab both of those, just this one right here. And just kind of smooth this out. Because the X value should all be like one smooth motion. The X value should be one long like curve. So I'm actually going to smooth this all out on the X axis. So it's almost like a linear movement. Right, like linear looking. I'm gonna fine tune this, because if I start to make it look like, Yeah, no, I think you can do the bounce thing here too. I think so. Oh, that looks weird. You can see the paths updating kind of funny doing that, so I'm going to kind of stay off of that track. Move back over here, move over here, and then update this line to just kind of see what looks best that way. Aha. Okay. Maybe this one can go down a bit. This one might be easier to do on a speed graph. That was crazy chaos. Let's separate the dimensions. It's all about troubleshooting. You lose that. Let's delete the... I thought I just did that. So now, well, here you have your heavy bounce now. If I were to move this over here and play the... So I did kind of, at least I taught you how to do the heavy bounce. You would have to make sure your curve looks like this, right? And then the ball's going to just kind of bounce, bounce, bounce. The hovering is a little bit much. I would probably come back and do something like this. Adjust these top ones right up here to keep that hovering from being too, like the amount of time that it stays up in the air. You don't want it to be up in the air for too long, so maybe you have to move this one just up a little bit. So boom, boom, boom. Probably have another bounce in there. That's how you get the heavy ball bounce. So let's see if we can get this real quick, because we got 15 minutes. It might be worth doing this on the value graph. Let me keep this actually and duplicate this pre-comp up here, because I've already done the work almost for the heavy bounce. I would just increase like the height of each one, and I'm gonna put this one as mass heavy ball, right? And so now, where's that one? This one right here, I can delete this title or change the title for later, delete the projectile, and just come in here and change the values so that this starts up higher, right? We want to just bring this up a little bit higher. It's going to hit here. Right here, it's going to go up maybe about a third of the way. It's going to hit the ground again. Then it's going to go up about a third of the way after that. Then it's going to hit the ground again, and then it's going to go up just a tiny bit more. What was that last? This last value was 829. So as long as it's not up to 829, probably 844, then I move another 12 frames, bring this down to the bottom one, which was 878. Remember that, because these are all 878. These ones should be. Yep, perfect. And then bring it up here. Boom. It'd probably just kind of stop right there too. So if I play this, if we look at the curve, we'd have to adjust the curve here, right? So that's happening there. This one's there. Adjust this one a little bit more because we changed the height of everything. So when you change the height, you might have to come in here and adjust your curves. Change this one, making sure not to go over any of these ones. This one kind of goes, okay, no, it doesn't hit the same spot. I'm going to do that. Bring this one just out a little bit. This one just up a hair, right? Just a tiny bit there. Looks like it overshoots a little bit. You'll get used to seeing that, so I'm going to drop that down there. And in fact, you want to adjust the timing now so that it happens faster and faster, right? So when this ball hits, each bounce is going to be faster, is going to be shorter than the first one as far as timing goes. So I'm going to, kind of works out that this happened so that it can at least show you the heavy ball. Because the light one is going to be easier to do. So with the heavier ball, I'm going to just take all these keyframes, not selecting that one, and I'm going to shuffle them in. Oh, didn't mean to do that. Just maybe 2 frames, right? So grab this, grab all of these, move them in, 1, 2. Actually, let's leave this one here. Let's move this one into, and then you just grab them all. And then we're going to go this one and move this in 4 because we already did 2 on the first one. So control 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I'm just going to select these ones. Grab and drag and hold down shift. And then we're going to go in 6 frames from this one. 1, 2, oh yeah, 3, 4, 5, 6. If you hold down Alt and then push your arrow keys on your keyboard, it will do that, but then you have to make sure that you're selected on all of these, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh. And then select these last 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then this tiny one, just zoom in right here. Probably put it about that timing. So then now what's going to happen is if we look at our curve, we select all of these, look at the curve. Notice it gets shorter. We're going to have to adjust these again. Let's zoom in here. We only want the Y position. Going to zoom into our curve right here. Select this one, bring that up. Holding down your space bar allows you to shuffle around like that as well. Probably grab this one right here. Just that one. This one's where the adjusting needs to really happen. Right there. Right there. And then right here. Right, and so now when we play it, holding down shift. Boom, 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 boom. Shortens up there. I probably wouldn't even necessarily tighten up the spacing as tight as it is down here. I'd probably wouldn't be so accurate with that. Likely go like this. And then this. And then play it to see what it looks like. There we go. I'd probably add 1 little extra bounce here. Just to get it shorter, or even shorten the height of this one. Drop it down even lower. So then when this plays, there's barely like even a little thing there. I would smooth this out. If we had enough time, I would smooth this out a little bit more. Probably add an extra bounce in somewhere. Mess around with the curves a little bit more as well in order to just kind of get like this smooth looking heavy bounce. Not that this is terrible. The end kind of jumps a little bit, which I'm not a fan of. I'm going to shuffle this in a little. Now shuffle all these in. Actually, let's spread them out. Let's spread them out a hair. I think that might actually do the trick. 12, 12. Add an extra little. probably adjusting, just really working on the timing. Clicking and dragging is going to be your friend here when you need to select. There's a curve issue here, and I can see right about hits right there is like some overshooting happening right in between these ones. So I'm going to select that, go to my curves, and I could tell right away that there was overshoot happening, and you can see that happening right there in the curves. So I'm just going to drop this down like this. Then it's happening here as well. So I'm going to drop that down. That's going to happen when you're adjusting the timing. Probably going to drag this one in just a hair. There we go. Not bad. Add a little bit of motion blur on this. Nice. And then we have our heavy, so we have the heavy ball. In fact, let me change the name. Heavy and light. Let's change that because we can have both of these in the same comp like before. I'm going to save real quick. I'm actually going to go back to my dope sheet mode. I'm going to make work easy for myself. I'm going to duplicate this. I'm going to change this from heavy to light just so I know which one's which. Light ball pre-comp. And I'm going to change the color to like blue. And we've already got a bunch of Y position on here. Let's hit the X. I'll show you guys with the value graph next time. But since we're already, I'm sorry, with the speed graph on how to do the other one next time. I was trying with the value graph, but it wasn't working very well. When you're doing one position, the value graph works great. But when you're messing around with two positions, sometimes it's easier to work inside of the value graph, but sometimes it's easier to work inside of the speed graph, right? Because this one is the value graph and here is the speed graph. So they look rather different right here. But in order to get the, we need both positions because I want to move this over, right? And since we haven't done the X, we haven't animated anything on the X position, I can move both of these balls on the X position without having any issue at all. So I can kind of line them both up on this spot right here. Oh, yeah. You'll probably have to rewatch. I would suggest rewatching these ones as well. I really only did 2 of these today. There's the mass and weight, the squash and stretch. But these, if you click on these start you right off in the sections where I go over them, particularly here. So if you want to watch them from past classes, which you'll probably have to, you're going to have to for the squash and stretch is going to be an easier one. But we've done the mass, we've done half of the impact one. You'll just have to watch the rest of them on here. But I wanted to show you guys specifically like different layer styles you could use here today. And then about how you can take like shortcuts and kind of do half the work. You get more, right? You get more bang for your buck here because of having the heavy ball animated, the light ball. You just have to take these, spread them out, holding down Alt. I'm going to spread them out a little bit further. So the light ball is going to take a lot longer. But then I need to... actually, let's keep the timing the same. But the first impact's going to happen. And then this one, instead of moving up only a little bit, it's going to move up quite a bit. Like at least halfway, if not a little bit more. And in fact, I'll just delete these. I'm going to grab this bottom one right here. this bottom keyframe where it makes impact with the ground. I'm going to hit Control C to copy it. And so then I know that each time it hits the ground, I can just hit paste. And then this one, what was this value here? Came up to there, 501. So I'm going to go there. I'm going to bring this back up a little bit, maybe halfway at this point. Move another 12 frames, paste my floor frame. Move another 12 frames, move back up, not quite halfway. Move another 12 frames, paste my floor frame, move another 12 frames, move up a little bit more. So it's basically like halfway each time, right? Move another 12 frames, paste, another 12 frames, moving up, moving another 12 frames. We're going to paste again, moving another 12 frames. This one's going to take a lot longer to come to a stop because it's a light ball, right? Paste that one. Probably do one more bounce. Just barely lifting off the ground. Coming over here. And pasting that one. So now if I play this, like the timing's the same, but you can tell this is a light ball because it's continuing to go and go and go and go and go. Let's select all of these keyframes. Let's look at the curves under the value graph. And we have some updating to do on these. So let's just kind of select all of this and work from the beginning because it's easy once you figured out really just how to do all of it. So I'm going to just hit, can I do that on these? Let's go over here. Let's select all of them and just hit Alt and click or Control and click, and it'll change these all to default keyframes, your linear ones. And then I'm going to just hit F9 to give like a default easing here. And then I'm just going to go in on all of these bottom frames. I'll get this one in a second. And I'm going to hold down Alt, and I'm just going to bring one end up, bring another end up. Just making sure that I'm not overshooting over this area. So I'm going to have to fix this one. I'm going to grab all of these top ones like right here and accentuate the motion, holding down Shift. I don't want to break that, but I just want to accentuate it. And then kind of moving in here. This is the area where you have to, where the bounces get shorter, where you have to start getting in a little bit closer to your graph to start updating it more. So here I would just take this one and shorten this side down. Take this one, shorten this side down. Right here. Same with this one. So that these curves aren't going past the next keyframe. The keyframe after. Right. Oh, undo that. And then you see where every one of these hard bounces, these hard areas, this is the impact on the floor. These are the these are the keyframes where the ball is in the air. I'm going to grab this one, drag this down quite a bit more. This is very subtle little end bounce there, right there. So now when you play this, you've got a ball that bounces on forever and ever and ever. And then to adjust that timing, you can just grab all of these and hold down Alt and drag them inwards. But then I think we're going to have, no, we didn't have any too bad of issues. There we go. And there you have a light ball bounce. In fact, I probably would have cut, probably wouldn't even need this one. But then you might have to check and just zoom in on here and be like, okay, which keyframes do I need to move over to an actual frame, right? So I'm just going to take these, move along, move it to the closest one that it's near. Probably this one because of where This one, I'll move it to here, here, just so these are on actual frames and not in between them like they shouldn't be. This one actually landed on one. This one will move over there. Move that one there. This one there. And then we are good to go. Oh, let's zoom back out. Nice. Then having that motion blur on there is very helpful as well. But all of a sudden you have a heavy ball and a light ball. And really the difference is the height at which that ball goes and then the distance on which it goes, right? To get the heavy one, it doesn't go as high on each bounce. It's going to go maybe a third of the way on each bounce. And then it's not going to bounce for nearly as long. This, remember, when you're looking at your timeline, this is your time, right? The further, the longer, the bigger the distance from the beginning to the end is the longer the animation is going to be, right? So this is almost, so the light one is almost double the length of the heavy ball animation. So making sure that these are appropriate. In fact, I would probably take all these and maybe even kind of match a similar timing at the beginning of this one until they start to kind of match up a little bit more, just to make them look a little more cohesive. There, that one lines up. This one, I'm going to keep moving this way. This is where they're starting to like break off from each other in distance, right? Because you want to make sure that each one of these, like the distance gets shorter in between the keyframes, but like as it keeps going, you don't want you don't want the distance in between like these two to be this short and then the rest of them to be longer. Every time you have to be shorter and shorter and shorter until you're down to nothing, right? So this timing I would work out. Obviously this one's a little bit, probably move this one in. Play this. Check it out. Nice. That looks really nice. Cool. So yeah, we have to do all 4 for the assignment. Yes, you do. So it's 3 scenes. You're going to have 4 scenes, including your title, right? So you have this one, which will have 2 balls. So I got to the light impact one. We were trying to do something different with the heavy impact one, and it wasn't working out. So that's why I just moved to the heavy and light as far as like mass goes. The heavy and light ball. So you're going to have, scene 1 these can be mixed around too. They don't have to all be in this order. It's just how I wrote the order. So you're going to have one scene where there's a heavy ball and a light ball bouncing. So literally the one we just did right here. Excuse me. And then you're going to have an impact scene where you have a light ball being impacted and then a heavy ball being impacted, which is this first scene right here. Right here, this one. And then you're going to have another one where it's going to be a bounce with a squash and stretch. So here you only really have to create one bounce, loop that bounce, because it doesn't have to show weight here. We want to show squash and stretch. And this one will probably actually take you maybe the least amount of time, the squash and stretch one. But there's 2 different ways to do it. There's one using transform properties, which are your scale, right? And which we've already done once already. So if you've already done this, then you're pretty much know what to do. And then we're going to do one with path animations. So this one's a little bit more fun, where you break into the object itself and start like moving Bezier handles around to create like similar to like what we did with the Adobe Animate Ball, but inside of After Effects. And I give you guys the curves for the bounces and stuff like that. So The only one that you don't see here is the curves for the impact scene. That's the only one that I don't have on here. But if your curves look like this for the heavy and the light bounce, right? This one right here is the heavy bounce because it's shorter as far as distance or time, and it's shorter as distance, right? And then this one is obviously the light. This is the light ball bounce. And then this right here is what your squash and stretch keyframe, the animations should look like. The graph should look like this on your scale property, not the path animation. You won't be able to update with path animations. You don't play with the curves with it. You just I'm sorry, you guys. You just make the changes. It's almost like frame by frame, right? So you create the easing yourself with the shape of the object. But I explain all of that inside of the squash and stretch inside of this section right here once you click on that. So the due date range for this project specifically is Monday the 26th through March 4th. So I know the text, like I said, the text one and these ones are going to overlap, right? Because the ones due this week, the project due this week is the Real and Surreal up to the text typography project, right? Because I had accidentally entered in the wrong time for this one, so I gave you guys up until the 26th to do the typography project, but you should probably almost have it done by now. And then the Real and Surreal project, the 19th through the 26th is when this one is due, and then this one is due the 26th through the 4th of March. So next week is when this one's all due, so you guys will have time to sit and watch this. And then right after that, I think we're close to spring break, so we'll have a little bit of time if you guys need to catch up with anything. But do you guys have any questions right now before I end the stream? Today was mostly like, it's like learning a recap of kind of what you've done, but also adding a little bit more complexities into it. And then also adding a little bit more, obviously I wanted to give you guys like some design stuff to go with it too, so you can make something that looks a little bit more interesting than just like a flat ball on there, because I think that past ones look a little flat to me, and so I think that is cool adding that. Cool. No questions. Yeah, I will let you guys go. Have a good weekend. If you do have questions, guess what? Discord. Send me a message in there and I'll, help you out. So, and then I'll try and make a video where I show you guys how to use the speed graph with the one ball bounce so that you can do that if you want to. I just didn't have time to revisit that today. So, other than that, have a good night, you guys. I will talk to you all later and enjoy your weekend. Bye.